Hi, Dane. How are you?
Hey Rama, how you going?
Very nice. Thanks for agreeing to meet me on a Sunday. And so we are going to have this interview. Dane has been one of my coaching students for more than a year now. And so we're going to have a fun chat to understand his journey, what were his goals, what were his challenges, and how he's getting through them. That's the idea for this chat. And so I'll allow you to introduce Dane. So if you can give a quick introduction, that would be great.
Okay, so I've been a student of Rama's for the past, I would say it's been almost 18 months. And the reason I started with Rama, actually, I began doing Toastmasters here in Australia, and I was looking for some additional resources. And I got onto eBay and looking for books, and I found a book that Rama actually wrote about Toastmasters. So I bought the book and I read the book and learned a few things. And then I also subscribed to Rama's email along the way and got a few emails. And then one day I got an email about, would you like public speaking coaching? And so I emailed you back, Rama, and here we are.
Awesome. And do you want to give a quick background about what do you do, like from a professional standpoint?
Yeah, so what I do, I work in a professional industry. So I work in the finance industry. And it's always a challenge to conduct yourself with professionalism and composure. And one thing that you need to do that you just don't have any option, you need to public speak here and there. And it's one of those skills that if I didn't at least get to a minimum standard, then my career is just going to be stuck.
Awesome, awesome. And talk to walk us through the challenges that you are facing in general, and what motivated you to take that extra step to go for a coaching.
Okay, yeah. So look, I think my biggest challenge when I'm at home, I'm a bit of a relaxed kind of person, fun person, I'm almost an immature person, but in a good way. I'm happy like that. That's how I like to live my life, not too serious. But when you get to work, you sort of have to tone down on those aspects. Uh, you can't make too many jokes at work, or you can't be too immature because you want to give that perception of someone that's professional. And that was a challenge for me because when I go to work and if I bring in the 100% of myself, it's not going to quite cut it. And I don't feel that I need to change myself or people need to change themselves. But at work or in a professional setting, you just need to dial it back a bit. And how you dial it back, it's how you communicate. And that's where the public speaking comes in. It's the words that leave my mouth. How do I control them? And how do I speak them in the way that I want to come across in the workplace?
Awesome, awesome. And um, so, how has it been? Like, what were the things you've been doing in the last 12 to 18 months? And how do you see yourself grow as a person over the 18 months?
Yeah. So I mean, you're probably out of vouch for this, Rana, but since I've been with you, I've got far more confident at public speaking. When I began it was I guess I had the confidence and almost the charisma to do it, but it was more the way I spoke the words. It was just getting some of those, making myself more polished. And so when I first began, I was really struggling to come across the way I wanted to come across because I was just speaking as who I am, the kind of person I am at home. And it took a long time to get to where I wanted to be. And I'm still not there now, but I'm very happy with the progress. But what I did to get there, and this is what I learned from anything in life, you have to practice. It's as simple as that. Yeah, because I've read a lot of books and all this kind of stuff beforehand, and I wasn't making any progress. And the knowledge was in my mind. It's not that I wasn't learning, but I couldn't put those what I've learned into action. So then I started practicing my public speaking, recording myself, watching it back. And I just found the more I practiced, the better I got. And I think that's how it goes with a lot of things in life, and it definitely helped with my public speaking.
Awesome. And Dane has a very meticulous routine. I think routine is the right word. And I've come to appreciate it more these days because I've been reading Atomic Habits, and many of you might have seen it in the email. So the routines matter a lot, and if it's good, it's going to help you. And if the routines are bad, it's not, it's going to take you in the downward spiral. So then gets up in the morning, practices his public speaking, or he does some of his other positive routines that help him. And it's been a great asset. And that is something, if anyone is watching, you can imbibe it every morning, just a few minutes. It could be any topic, whatever you're comfortable with. Just speak off the cuff and see yourself how you're doing. If you have a friend or someone who can give feedback, sure, please feel free to share with them, and you will get a very honest feedback on your current situation and capability. Uh, Anything, Dane, you want to add on if someone is watching? What kind of mindset you bring to the table when you're doing those practice sessions?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that you mentioned the book Atomic Habits, James Clear. So I read that book perhaps 2 years ago now, and that book changed my life. So it's all about habits and having healthy habits. And I found that I was probably doing a lot of the things that the book said anyway, but once you realize what you're actually doing, it's easier to stick to it. And but with the habits, what I've learned, you just need to try and whatever you want to achieve, just do a little bit each day because we're all busy. It's hard to put an hour aside for something that you want to achieve. But if you do 10 minutes a day or 15 minutes a day, it doesn't sound like much, but it does add up in the end. But I have to do a lot of reading for work, and it feels like there's just so much to read because I have to read legislation and the books are this thick and whatever. But on the train, every morning I'll read. On the train home, every night. It's about 40 minutes a day, and it doesn't seem much day by day, but you look back over the last 12 months, and all of a sudden you have all this knowledge, and you don't feel like you've worked that hard because you've just chipped away at it. So what did we say? I think we were saying the other day over email, Rama, that small steps equal outcomes.
That's
Yeah.
in fact, years ago, I gave a speech about habits, and it has been one of my much appreciated speech. And at that time, I had never read Atomic Habits, but that was a very raw speech from what I've experienced. But there is a science to it, and there is a method to it that people have researched. And habits is one area which has gained a lot of popularity maybe in the last 5 to 10 years. Before that, it was all about hard work. It was all about, there were other terms to it. Sure, you need to do hard work, but I think habits gaining more and more acceptance and visibility, and it really changes. And I think it nearly makes or breaks someone's life, right? Nobody does any bad thing overnight, and nobody does any good thing overnight, right? It has happened over the years, and that's the result of what they're achieving. So that's something to touch upon. And so walk us through your key problems, right? Like what were those key problems that you were? I'm talking about specific issues. I mean I don't want to say I know when we were talking about what were you situations. Let me put this way, right? If there were some situations where you found it a difficulty, and if you can talk us through, and I know you had this debate about being professional, and I was saying that, and I had my spin to it. So just talk us through. If someone is watching, it will help them get their perspective right.
Yeah, so I think it's just polishing up on those little things. So I actually, so we have been together for a while now, Rama, and I've gone through, I got a new job in that time, and it's quite a good job. It's a very good job, very professional job. And one of the first things my manager said to me, he said, "You speak with a too much of a country accent." And this is because where I live in Australia, I live more in the regional country areas, but I work in the city, so my accent comes across a bit laid back and relaxed, and yeah, perhaps not what how people articulate themselves in the big cities. And he's right, I do have that relaxed country accent, and it's difficult to influence people or be a leader when you don't have the same qualities as other people. People generally like and listen to people that are much similar to themselves. So it's things like that was a big challenge for me, is just somewhat refining, my accent, not so much the accent, but it's more coming across in just a clearer, more professional manner, having people taken seriously. And the second part to that, and this is my biggest challenge, and it's there for me now, my vocabulary is absolutely terrible. The amount of words I know is minimal compared to the average person in my industry. And if you say a word and you say it incorrectly or use a word in the wrong context, then people are not going to, they're not going to buy into what you say, because they immediately don't think you have the knowledge or experience leading them. And that's something I've really struggled with. And I think when you practice and get your public speaking under control, you don't use words or how to say it or what to say, because you practice so much, you always find strategies to get around it and articulate yourself in the way that you know how.
That's right. And so Dane had this argument that he was not polished, but I'm sure people are watching how you're speaking now. I'm absolutely thrilled the way you're articulating your points, and it's very lovely to watch. Um, I had another question on the job interview and you changing jobs. I almost forgot about that point. So, how did public speaking in general helps when you go to the table with the job interview? Of course, you need to have the actual functional skills needed for the job interview. Apart from that, how did public speaking help in that whole journey when you were about to take that interview and prepare for that interview? Anything you want to add?
So what I did to prepare for this interview, I just wrote out notes and notes and notes, almost like I was writing a speech, actually. So I probably had 4 pages of typed notes for the interview. And I remembered everything I wrote. Actually, what I was doing at the time, I was working from home. So I used to go for walks at lunchtime, and then I would recite my script in my head. This is my script for my interview that I was planning on using. And I'll just walk and walk and walk, practice until I had these 4 pages memorized. And then when I went into my interview, I didn't speak the script or anything like that. But when they would throw a question at me, at least I had a good background about what I was going to say. And yeah, I did use a few little catch lines that I had memorized. But I just felt like it put everything I wanted to say into my wisdom. So when they did ask me the questions, I was prepared.
Awesome. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. And if someone's preparing for an interview, whether it's internal or whether it's with the client, it is a very simple strategy that what Dane just explained. Um, the problem is with too much of experience and knowledge is you have too much to say, and to say it succinctly and in a very clear way is going to be a challenge. And if you can summarize everything that you want to convey to the other person in a written form and have it in your fingertips. So Dane used the word memorize, but I would say internalize that go over and over again. So it doesn't feel like you are taking it from here, it's just coming in from your muscles, right? So it's just part of you. That's the way you go with the speeches and the way you go with probably interviews. It's just an application that the Dane used very cleverly, I would say, and it's just awesome. And how have you been with the new job? You want to add anything? How was your communication over there, and what were the challenges you faced initially? You want to add?
Yeah, look, it's actually going really, really well, far better than I would have expected it to go. It was a tough role, tough gig, and I was concerned whether I was going to perform or not. But so far, so good. And I've been there over a year now, so it's really working. But it wouldn't work without the dedication. And also another thing, I guess we probably should touch on, Rama, is setting goals as well. Because I remember at the start of this year, you and I set some goals for myself as to what I wanted to achieve for the year. And I think that's really important, and that has assisted with my success in this role because those goals are always at the back of the mind. Everything I do, everything I do at work, I'm thinking, is that achieving the goal I want to achieve? And that's how I conduct myself, and it really helps to have those goals. And I think that's why I have been relatively successful here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And helping others if someone wants to do better at the work or in the business, whatever is their vocation. And so, what I wanted to ask you this: what were some of your fears, right? When it comes to your in profession or speaking ability, is there something that you always had? If somebody going to judge you, or if somebody is going to, is there anything of that sort? I don't know if you fears. Do you have any fears if somebody is judging you, or if somebody? Is there anything at all?
Not so much. Look, I don't really mind if people judge me as such. That doesn't bother me too much. But the problem is, I guess, in a professional context, if you give a bad impression, then it's going to take a long time to get over that. So, yeah, I mean, whilst I don't mind being judged, I also want to do well in life. And if people are judging me and that's going to hold me back, then I mind being judged. I don't mind so much if people ridicule or anything like that. So that's the work side. But at Toastmasters, when we do speeches there, yeah, I don't mind if people judge me there. That's fine because that's a safe space to fail. So people can be a bit shy or nervous or even embarrassed to get up and do a speech. I think it depends where you do it, because if you're doing it somewhere professionally, well, yeah, maybe you should have those feelings because you need to get it right. But if you're doing it in a safe environment, maybe in front of family or a club like Toastmasters, then I think that's okay. You shouldn't have those fears. Just get out there and try a few different things. And that's the attitude I take there.
Awesome. So were you always like this? Or is this something you recently developed? No, it's just for my knowledge because I never asked you this question. It just came off the cuff.
It's a good question. It's a good question because in my mind I have no fears, right? That's because I don't care. Yeah, people can judge. But that's in my mind. So when I did my first Toastmasters speech, we had to give a speech about ourselves, just an icebreaker, they call it, something about you, whatever it was. And so I put together this speech and fully confident in my mind, no issues. And I thought I'll practice it in front of my family. So really just my wife, my mum, my sister and her husband, they're the only people that were there. When I started practicing it in front of them, I was so nervous. I just didn't understand why. It was more of a physical thing that took over.
Okay.
Even though my mind, I felt that was prepped, ready to go, in front of these people that I speak to all the time, the nerves just kicked in. And I'm so glad that I did it in front of them before I did it in front of anyone else, because I come to a lot of realizations and just realized that I got to the end of the speech and I did quite well, even though I was really nervous. And again, it comes back to that practice. Don't just practice by yourself. Get out and practice in front of a few people you're comfortable with. But it's amazing how the physical can take over.
That's a very, very interesting and I think valuable point that you just mentioned. So even practicing in front of people whom you are comfortable with helps, right? That's what you're saying, because you assumed that it would be a cakewalk, but it was not.
Yes,
And then
that's right.
you realize that nervousness can take over even if it is just people you are comfortable with. Wow, that's actually very insightful for me too. I would assume too that we will be okay. And it's been a while I'm in a situation because now you are saying that it is an aha moment for me too that so that brings to another point that I wanted to ask. So, what do you want to talk about? Talking from here and then just talking to the audience. You remember we had
What
this
do,
chat?
what do I want to talk about just in general, or?
No, when you're speaking, I think this was one of the earliest feedbacks I had. You remember when we are speaking, are you thinking from here and speaking? Are you speaking towards the audience?
Yeah, so that's one of the difficult things, especially when you might write a script and you're going to stick to that script. It's very easy to be thinking about what you're going to say, what you're saying next, and the mind's thinking about how you're going to do the speech while you're doing the speech. And sometimes the mind's not actually focusing on what you're saying. And so that's something I don't think I've nailed that yet. It's really when I speak, I need to make sure that I'm in the moment. My mind is on what I am saying, but that's going to take a long time because when you write a script and you're sticking to that script, it's hard to not think about what you're going to say next. And I think that I guess the end goal for any public speaker is to have their internalize what they want to say and improvise it, and that way you can be in the moment. But that to me, that's more of an end goal. I'm happy to go off scripts at this point in time, and at some point, hopefully, I can get to that level.
And trust me, it's not, and nobody nails it. It's. I mean, people who've been speaking for years, they look very polished, and it's you can say that they're speaking off the cuff, and sometimes they do. But a prepared speech, when you're speaking, you can internalize it, and you can be more confident. The internalization takes time. If you have internalized it, sure, you don't need to think because it's just part of you. It's like one of those preparations you did for your interview. So you are not thinking and speaking. So if you internalize, that's there. And then I'm happy that you touched upon it that and you're being very honest that you're not nailed it. And I'm second that nobody nails it. It takes years and years of practice and skill. It's a skill. So that's awesome. I had few other questions. I just want to make sure that I'm not missed out. Um, so have you tried any other thing? Like, what prompted you to get into public speaking at this time? Maybe last year that you wanted to take a real action towards it. You started reading books and you started looking for help with coaching. So, what was that trigger that you had? Like, what did you try anything before? Did you do anything about it? Uh, this should have come in the first, but I missed it. So I just checked my notes and I'm saying it. Just wanted to ask you that.
Well, I've always read a lot of books on human behavior and what to say, how to say the right things. And because before this job, I actually was in sales, so I read a lot of sales books and learned a lot of sales techniques, and that was fine. They're a bit easier to implement in a one-on-one situation with a client. But as my career moved up and I wasn't dealing with clients anymore, I realized that I have to start speaking to smaller groups or larger groups.
Got it.
And even before this time, I was always of the view that if you want to be successful in your career, you need to know how to public speak. If you look at all CEOs have to public speak. Most people in a senior position will know how to public speak. And it was just, there's no option but to learn those skills. And I have to say this, Rama, and you might not like this, but I actually hate public speaking. And it, it's just one of those things that you just need to know how to do it. It's a non-negotiable.
That's funny. No, I'm not. I'm not gonna hate you because you're gonna say that you hate public speaking. It's look. This is what I would say, right? It is. You can. I mean, public speaking is not one of those attractive things, right? It is. It is. It is seen as a fear, right? Whenever someone speaks about public speaking, they see they associate it with fear. Oh my gosh, it's fear of public speaking. It's stage fright. It's just there. They just associate public speaking with the word fear, and I intentionally do not talk about it at all because the moment you associate it with fear, you're seeing it in a negative light. Right? You're not. It's very unattractive, and you don't feel like doing anything. You kind of you don't like to do something is unattractive, right? You want to make it attractive. You want to see it in a positive light. So I associate it with excitement. I associate it with something that is exciting for you to do. And it is if jumping off a plane, doing a skydiving is very fearful. But once you do it, you can feel the rush. You can feel the excitement. Public
Yeah,
speaking is not as dangerous as that, but it somewhere is a little exciting, right? When you overcome that fear.
absolutely. I guess, and I will add to that. I mean, whilst it is challenging to do a speech or to do a presentation, if you do pull it off and you've done a really good speech or you've presented to a group and you've done a fantastic job, that is the best feeling. So there is high reward, high risk, high reward type situation.
It is, right?
Yeah,
And as I said in the example before, it's not as dangerous as jumping off a plane, but the reward that you get is you're not putting yourself in real danger, but you're just putting out a little bit, testing your potential, and just getting handsomely rewarded.
that's
And
right.
this is one of those skills. It's an asset. Once you build it, it's people have to realize that their entire careers they have this fear, they have this inhibition. But if they can just get this right and they can use it as an asset instead of whatever liability that they carry throughout their career, whatever 30 years, 40 years, if they can use it, I mean, they can reach the sky. That's my honest opinion on how people can use this as a tool and an asset. And I'm really happy that you have deliberately chosen and understood that it is not an option. And I didn't know you've been reading a lot of books before even you joined the coaching. It's an insight for me as well. And you are conscious about growing in your career and having this as an asset to your growth. I mean, I'm very happy. And Dane inspires me a lot. I've said this to him maybe in a very mild way, but I have to say this publicly. His work ethic is awesome. I'm very excited to help him out in whatever his goals are because uh, his work ethic really inspires me, and I have to share it with him because I have to highlight the good qualities and the assets that he carries naturally. And he's been a musician as well. I don't know if you know. He practices guitar, and he's also a new dad. That's something he manages along the way. It's not as he doesn't feel it as a job at all, and nobody should feel. But Ben has been wearing many different hats, and I'm really happy that I've been being able to help in this journey. So I think we've been like chatted for more than 30 minutes here, Dane. And I just wanted to have this as a fun chat. Do you have any message to share to the audience who's struggling with public speaking and they're trying to find a way out? And anything from your perspective, what is the advice that you would give?
Yeah, look, I think if people are struggling with public speaking, I think the first thing is you just need to practice it. There's no other way you can do it. Like I said, I wasn't progressing until I actually physically started to practice. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you got to take that practice to that next level and get out there and practice in front of other people. And look, I have to say, I mean, get a coach, get a life coach, get a public speaking coach. It's good to have someone there to bounce your decisions off, to bounce your objectives off, and also to get some, I guess, some critical feedback as well.
Awesome, awesome. Very nicely said. Thank you, Dane. I think I had a lot of fun chatting with you, and it's been a real pleasure working with you and coming so far. All right. Thank you all. When anyone is watching, thank you for your time. I hope you got a lot of value and had fun watching our chat here. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rama.
Thanks, Dane.